Hello, everybody. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I'm starting this without Luciana, so it might not be pretty. Luciana's going to be a couple minutes late, but she's um, she's on here. Can you hear me, Glenn? I can't hear you.
We're having some technical difficulties.
Um,
I can't hear. Hold on a second.
well, let me see.
Yeah, okay, that's better.
We'll just wait for you to
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
There's some technical difficulties.
All right.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Glenn. This is Glenn Ledette from Nevada
Yep,
and
Pahrump, Nevada.
Corrupt, Nevada. I'm Catherine from Corrupt, Ohio. And my partner here, Luciana, will be along shortly.
Okay.
Okay. The title of the broadcast is something like, didn't we used to call them public servants?
Right.
And yet, I think they bristle at that now. We're talking about the people who occupy the corporate government that calls itself our real government. We can call them parasitic psychopaths,
Right.
you know. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Uh, why don't you introduce yourself, Glenn? And we're going to focus on this broadcast on a particular um, uh, matter of human trafficking that's going on in Nevada. It's pretty bad um, uh, because it actually involved them turning on their own, which was I thought interesting.
Because that's always fun when that happens.
Yeah, right.
Make them eat their own, do the work for you.
Right. Yeah. So you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and tell the audience how you got into, common law work, or if I don't know if you would even call it that.
Well, yeah, it is a basis to go back to what the founding of this country was always supposed to be about. And so about 2017, I had enough. I was running multiple organizations. I was the CEO of a company, and it was just, and I was doing this in the wonderful Republic of California, which doesn't act as a republic at all. And I was born and raised there, and I saw the destruction of what took place in that state. At one point, when I was younger, there was a balance, and now anything outside of their narrative is wrong and bad, and you're a horrible human being, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't even know how many times I was called a racist, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's funny considering I come from a mixed background. And so I had enough, and so I came to be closer to some family out here in Nevada, and took a couple of years to decompress. We all know how that decompress. Sometimes it can take a considerable amount of time, especially when you're doing 60 plus hours a week. And then I had a neighbor down the street just happened to pull up to my fence while I was outside working on my property and introduced herself. And then she started crying. And I was like, wow, we just chatted for a few minutes, and she started crying, and she told me what was going on. And so I worked with their board, it's a nonprofit organization, and we basically exposed what the county had done out here. And so at that point, I'm like, well, I have quite a bit of experience doing investigative work and exposing activities, and I knew the founder of our Nevada Republic PMA, Commonwealth PMA, and I decided to get on board, and we are revitalizing the group. We have quite a few members that have joined recently. We got our website up, yet it's not completed. It's never completed. If we feel that it's completed, then we're not doing our job. And what we've been finding out within our community is that their number one issue is the corruption. And so we've been working diligently on a lot of different cases and a lot of different circumstances. And we have recorded all this stuff down. We have documentations like crazy. We have hit our county with Freedom of Information Act requests, and they have been slow rolling it. They have not given us everything we've asked for. They have omitted considerable amount of documentation, and we have let them know in certain terms that this is not okay. Our plan now is to just expose it all. Now, what does the so-called law enforcement agencies do with that? Not quite sure, because I don't have a whole lot of faith in them. And because they're corporate entities, they're not even technically legitimate as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people are concerned. If we go back to our founding fathers, no corporation should be in charge of anything when it comes to the people, because we are a republic. And so we're going to expose it. We're going to show it for everybody to see, because the first way to communicate with people is, this is what's been going on, whether you're aware of it or not. This is what's happened. Here's the facts, here's the documents, here's the evidence, here's the recordings, here's everything that they've done. Because the way we're looking at it right now is, their system's not correct anyway, but if we can show that they don't even follow their own crazy system, that now we should be able to have a conversation about, this is what our founding fathers wanted for us. This is what these documents mean. This is what all their writings talk about. And what we have right now in place, yes, we haven't been paying attention. Yes, a lot of us have gone to sleep. Is not the way it's supposed to be. And so we need to get back to our roots. What are our roots going to be? Well, we have some pretty powerful documents that if we reverted back to, we have a lot of powerful writings and things that people wrote and described what this all means. We can just get back to those basics and then move forward. We would have the country that was envisioned at one point, which is by the people and for the people.
With their consent.
Yes, exactly. With their consent. So I always refer back to, within the Constitution, it tells you that when your government no longer does what it's supposed to do for you and places you in a state of despotism, which, if anybody doesn't know what that means, that basically means slavery, then it is not just our right, but it is also our duty to cast off that government and choose the correct entity for our futures. That doesn't mean necessarily go storm the buildings and drag them out, but it means that we have these conversations and we talk on these shows and we educate people. One of the things that our group is doing is we have what's called Education the Park. So we picked a park in our community, has a lot of shade trees, because we're out here in the desert, so it can get pretty hot sometimes. And on Saturdays, every other Saturdays, 5 p.m., we're going to sit and we're just going to pick a subject and we're going to start talking. Well, one of the things we found out is a lot of people don't even know what a republic is. So we're going to start at the basics. What is a republic? What's the history of republics? What is a republic supposed to represent? And then we can go to the next step and the next step. And by doing this and putting these videos up and explaining things to people, it's going to help educate. I used to do a show on what the Constitution says as far as the Bill of Rights go. And I used to then take Supreme Court cases only, U.S. Supreme Court cases only, And most of them are pretty old cases. And I would read certain excerpts to people and explain to them, this is what the court is saying. These are your rights. You don't have to have a conversation about it. The fact that they take people into custody and do these things and violate their rights, we shouldn't be having these conversations, but we do. And so we're going to have them, and we're going to make sure that people understand these are your rights. I've noticed the trend, I would say, to me, I see the trend changing. It started around 2012, 2013. I started seeing a big influx of people wanting to know what their rights were, because they don't teach this in school anymore. Wanting to know why things are the way they are. Because people say, well, the system's broken. No, the system's perfectly working fine for them. And the system is designed to work for them.
Right.
So it's not broken. It's not the right system. The system itself should not exist. It's against every fiber of our founding documents and our country as a whole. 5 years ago, I couldn't probably have a conversation with someone about the Fed Reserve. Today, I can have a conversation and they actually understand it now. It's not even supposed to exist.
Right. Most people just can't seem to understand. They can't wrap their brain around that they're supposed to do their own thinking and not just take orders from somebody up above them. They just can't conceive of that. And I guess I don't know what it takes to change that paradigm.
Here's the thing. So we understand what propaganda is. Well, a very famous propagandist during World War II said the same thing. You say the same thing over and over again. You eventually make it the truth in the mind of the people.
Right.
And when I was young, there was always a parent at home. One parent would go to work and one parent would be at home. And that I saw that change during my childhood. Well, if you have both parents working 50 plus hours a week, you have a couple of kids, because obviously they want to have kids and give them a future and build a family, because most of us just want to be able to live our lives and be left alone.
Yeah.
And you take away that possibility of a parent being involved in the children's lives, because the old saying, it takes a village. Well, when I was a kid, you'd be over at Mrs. Jones' house, and when you would address Mrs. Jones, it was yes, Mrs. Jones, and no, Mrs. Jones. Well, they say, well, kids don't have any respect nowadays. Well, if they're not in an environment that is respectful, they're not in an environment where they have parents that can take the time and educate them properly and teach them right and wrong, what do you expect? So we have a situation where the entire system, which is wrong in the first place and shouldn't be in existence the way it is finally starting to show its cracks in its armor. And that's very thankful, because there's a lot of us who have been around for some time realizing this is wrong, realizing these things are not appropriate, realizing that even their own rules are being violated by them, which their rules are stupid anyway. But now people are starting to see it, just like with the mandates. I don't know how many times I explained to somebody, a mandate means nothing. I could stand up in front of a podium and demand mandates all day long too, and it has just as much weight as these so-called leaders that you guys give credibility to. But I mean, people worship singers and worship, some sports star and worship this. Why aren't you worshiping your own family? Why aren't you worshiping your past leaders who actually did the right thing, who did the things that were supposed to be done, who stayed true to our rights as sovereign? We spend all our time, cases happen. We just had Memorial Day. We had a day. We have a Veterans Day. It's a day. Yet we can give whole months to other groups for what? So the question is, where's our priorities? Where as a society, our priorities are completely misstrued, but I think it's because we have been fed these non-truths, lies, manipulations for so many generations. And understand, today we have the internet, so now we can communicate quickly. We can get information out. We can be citizen journalists who actually get more views than the lamestream media. But also, our parents didn't have that same privilege, and our grandparents didn't have that same privilege. Whatever propaganda was fed to them by the newspaper, or fed to them by the magazines, or fed to them by the evening news and ABC and Walter Cronkite and all that drama, they didn't know any better. They had very rarely they had an opportunity to see something different. Now we don't have an excuse to not know the truth. We have the information available to us. We just have to make sure that we can resonate with people and we can point them in the direction. And when I interact with somebody and I get a little clip, like they're interested, I just give them a little tiny piece. Because just like I'm not gonna, I hate to use the term, but if a drug dealer is trying to deal drugs, he always gives the first one for free. Well, I'm just giving you a little tidbit. Hopefully you'll go down that rabbit hole and you'll open up a whole new world of truth to yourself.
Yeah, then that's a heck of an analogy, but yeah. Yeah, because we're not leading people into addiction. We're leading people into freedom. When
exactly.
We up the door to them freeing themselves from the current corporate system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's every level. We now can see it's our law enforcement. That's a joke. Our court system is a joke. Our legislatures and Congress people and representatives, quote unquote representatives, half the time I don't even think they were elected. They were just installed. We know our election system is corrupt. Well, and then we have our pharmaceutical industry, our medical fields. You have all these associations, like you yourself were a member of one of those associations that I chose not to become a member of. The courts abdicated their authority to a corporate entity because they themselves are a corporate entity. They're not even supposed to be a corporate entity.
Corporate entities should really not exist because the meaning of it is an artificial creation that can, if you use that artificial creation, you claim authority under it, which is ridiculous, then you can harm other people and not be liable personally for what you have done. How is that ever going to be lawful? It's not.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, if you think about it for a minute, people need to think about that for a minute. You have a corporation who made the rules. Of course, they absolve themselves of any liabilities. Then they tell you, well, I have authority over.
Because they said so.
Because they said so? I mean, just the same thing with mandates. Because I said so. Really? That's how that works? I don't think so.
No. Well, particularly not when we were guaranteed in writing, and that's been reaffirmed by them that we are the bosses, we're the sovereigns. We aren't their servants, they are our servants.
That's right. That's called public service for a reason.
Yes, right.
So our founding fathers. Oh, we have someone else. Hello.
Master and servant.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, Catherine.
Well, I mean, we started with, our founding fathers, the whole idea of serving the people and going into office. You were supposed to go and serve for a short period of time, and then you were supposed to go back to doing what you were doing and let the next generation, the next group of people. No, we got people in Congress who are, don't even know where they're at, and can't walk across the stage. And supposedly they're the smartest we have. Interesting.
Yeah, that happened recently. Today, right?
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Glenn? It's good to have you on.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to Luciana. We even have this broadcast. Thanks to Luciana, we have our common law website, occr2021.com. And it's where it's just amazingly useful for us in keeping track of our records and our cases and what was decided and what got filed with us when.
We the
And
people.
right.
So our court should be up and running here probably within the next couple. I mean, we've already the basis of it are already established, but I'm currently going through and reviewing everything and seeing what might want to be updated or changed or adjusted, and have our entire group agree that these are the changes that we want to expect. I have somebody working and editing our seal right now, so we're updating our seal as well.
And
We
that's
updated our flag. A couple other
that's
things
in-
that we're still working on.
that's
Like I
that's
said, I
in
put our
Nevada,
website
right?
up
In
because
Nevada,
I wanted to
right?
get it out there. It was time that people knew that we were here. So
And you're going to be operating out of what city in Nevada? Of course, you're going to be drawing from the entire state, I assume.
oh yes. But our home base is in Pahrump, Nevada.
Pahrump?
So we're about 40 miles north of Vegas.
Okay.
We're right on the edge of California and Nevada. So going within 20 minutes, you could be in California from here. So we're actually at the edge of the Mojave Desert, just before the beginning of Death Valley. So Death Valley is like 10 minutes away.
Okay.
So
Well-
it's about 30-something thousand people live here.
Oh,
Right. Okay. Well, that should be plenty. And you plan, I suppose, like we have done, and like even the de factos do, referring to the parasitic psychopaths that are public servants, supposedly. Yeah, I was just thinking that originally we were guaranteed, like a representative, one for every 30,000 people in the original 1781 Constitution. Of course, that didn't happen, or didn't happen for long. But with us, the people being the acknowledged sovereigns without subjects, we can do any of this that we want to do. We can create a court. Now, I'll tell you what a lot of people might be worried about is, oh, you'll be accused of practicing law without a license. Well, I just learned that somebody did accuse us of that with the so-called Ohio Board of Disciplinary Council. Well, you know what? I'm not a member anymore, and none of our people, I don't think, ever were members. And so we're not bound by that. And we're not bound by any of their rules because we're not, we have rejected that in writing, any signatures that would indicate that we have to follow their rules. We're not a corporate asset. We're not corporate assets. So we don't have to play by their rules. And we made that clear a long time ago before we formed, and we were only formed by free people. And you can go to our website and you can see everybody's status document where they confirmed that whatever I signed before saying I would act as a U.S. citizen corporate slave, I'm repealing because it was my signature was induced by fraud. So
exactly.
And if we ever do choose to contract here or there, that's our choice. It's
Exactly.
not, we have no obligation to, we can't be forced into contracting into whatever they decide that we are contracted into. That we have a choice.
Exactly. Well, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of people, they watch these television court shows, the People's Court and this court and all that court, this. Ladies and gentlemen, that's no different. You can accept jurisdiction of any court you choose. You don't have to, per se, stick with the corporate court system. And so if they can do it on TV, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So it's no, I mean, if we choose, here's the thing. We are trying to bring back what our basis of our country was supposed to be. It has been infiltrated from within, and it has been taken over by corporate entities. They're not supposed to be here, period. So they can talk all the stuff they want, but as people realize, anything that you decided to be a subject to with them, you can just repeal that because you weren't aware of it. It was all propaganda. So,
yeah, consent doesn't mean anything if you weren't given all the facts beforehand.
Just like with the thing that goes in your arm and people are talking about now, well, you gave consent.
No,
Not really. You didn't have all the information before you didn't have all the facts. And thus, if you did it and you regret it, you actually didn't give proper consent.
Right. And you had a gun to your head, basically, metaphorically.
Yeah, your livelihood was threatened. Your form of travel threatened. It was by force, for sure. For many.
Lots of coercion, and none of it was constitutional. Not a single thing. None of it was lawful under the eyes of God, under anything. It's just the corporate entities telling you, well, this is what we said.
There's a question or a comment about whether or not we were have you opted out of voting in the current system? Absolutely, yes. In fact, we require that in order to be a member of our court, because when you sign voter registration, you're agreeing to be a corporate U.S. Slave, and also you are adding your name. You're agreeing to be a co-signer for their debts and for their investments. They use that. They use those voter registration lists to invest, to get loans. And, if they have so screwed up the country that other corporations are going to jump in and start, as secured party creditors, and they're going to want paid because, our so-called public servants have been spending like drunken sailors, and they want paid. They're going to look to us, not us, but to registered voters to foot the bill. We guaranteed those debts, didn't we? We signed. Here's your signature right there. Not me.
See, here's the thing. Even if they spent nothing, the minute they printed the first dollar, we were paying interest on it. That the system was set up to never be paid back.
Yeah.
It's impossible to pay it back. It was impossible to pay it back the minute we went on to the Third Federal Reserve. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is the third one. This ain't the first one. The first one was dissolved because it ran out of its charter. The second one, Andrew Jackson did away with. The third one was brought in, and if people want to know some serious information, go back and look at who was on the Titanic and why they were coming to the United States. And then exactly what happened right after that was the induction of the third and the current Federal Reserve that we're in.
Right. And Wilson, was bought off to go along with it. Right.
Yeah. So the minute they print a dollar bill, we're paying interest. You never will pay back. Because the act of printing another dollar bill to pay back that dollar bill garners interest. The system is designed that you never can get out of it.
Well, we're getting out of it.
Getting out of it.
Not completely, but we certainly are rebutting the presumptions that they use. They use our signatures to create, including, whatever presumption they want, the presumption of guilt. And I remember trying to argue the common law presumption of innocence in a jury trial, one of their corporate jury trials years and years ago when I practiced law in Oklahoma. And right in front of the jury, the fake black-robed wonder chastised me for instructing them on the law. Well, yeah, and leaving them with the distinct impression that there was no presumption of innocence.
And see, that is a fundamental right, because our founding fathers, when they said to the crown, goodbye, we don't want anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because before, you could be just picked up and you would have to prove that you were innocent, or you could spend the rest of your life in a gulag or be taken out and placed on a stake.
Mm-hmm.
If we are now in a situation where we have to prove our innocence. That's wrong. You have to prove that we've done something.
Right.
And here's the thing. If you can't prove it, we're not supposed to even be going to court. You're supposed to grand jury and panel every single time there's a capital crime. And they don't. They just, we're going to have a preliminary hearing. We're going to charge you. We're going to do this. I worked in the court system. I worked in law with law enforcement for a while back in the day. And I stopped because I looked at it and said, this is a joke. This is not the way it's supposed to be. You know, people take plea deals. I used to sit there in the courtroom, judges sitting there, and it's plea deal after plea deal after plea deal after plea deal. And these people don't even realize what they're pleading to. And they don't even, and they have no evidence of anything. Nothing.
Correct.
Not a damn thing.
Right.
But they're pleading because they don't get on with my life or this or that. It's like,
exactly.
They're just making you part of the system. And once you're in that system, good luck.
But I think people have now sort of accepted that it doesn't make sense, that it's not supposed to make sense. You just have to obey. That's just how you have to live your life.
And people, people keep asking. People keep asking. Look at all these years of evidence. Look at all this evidence. No one is being held accountable. And the same thing goes on the next month, the next year. Oh my God, look what they did now. And nobody's being held accountable. Well, they're not going to hold themselves accountable.
But that's the thing. How would you hold somebody accountable when, in order to hold them accountable, you would have to show that your system is illegitimate? Of course, they're going to protect their system. That's all they're doing now. That's all they want to do. It's atrocious, and that's, we stand for, what we stand for is to go back to our original founding documents, our original founding writings of how this country should be, and educate people on what that is, and stand against it and just say, I refuse to participate. You know, George Carlin said many times, if we stop participating, then their system is null and void. We as a group, we as a people have to just stop participating. We have to say, we're not doing this anymore. Someone sent a message. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to respond to that, and I'm trying to. So
the person's talking about, do you own property and do you pay taxes? Well, in order to buy a property, I have to use a Federal Reserve note, right? Or I have to get a Federal Reserve note loan. So in that sense, on my part, yes, I do. Now, I don't pay it directly. My mortgage company pays it. I probably wouldn't have paid it, but my mortgage company paid it.
Here's the thing, though. When you sign those so-called mortgage documents, and just to answer the question for Brian Mancy, as far as I'm concerned, yes, I do own property. And I don't pay property tax anymore. I've discovered that I'm not a taxpayer. And I invited them to tell me how I am, considering that the original 1781 Constitution prohibited direct taxation, which always meant land tax. And I don't care what they enacted after that, which isn't really much. If you look in their Ohio Revised Code, which is corporate policy, you can find all kinds of stuff about how to compute these so-called taxes,
but not that you pay them.
Not that you're required to do that.
So I own land. I own vacant land. I own rural land in the hills in Northern California, and I don't pay property tax on that, and they don't bother me about it.
Well, if you have a mortgage, you're in somewhat a different situation because you've entered into a contract agreeing to pay the property tax so that the so-called lender, who isn't really a lender, didn't lend you a damn thing,
Exactly.
won't be on the hook for the property tax.
I mean that I didn't have the money to buy it outright, so I didn't have the to do it.
When you sign mortgage documents, you are agreeing that they can dip into your Social Security trust fund, and you're paying for the property twice.
Yep.
And the second time with compounded interest.
Of course. Oh, I knew exactly what I was doing. It was done for a specific purpose, and it's been done for a specific reason. And there will be a date where this won't be an issue to me, or pretty much a lot of people. That date's coming soon. But it was just done I knew exactly what I was calculating. I do have land that is not encumbered by anything, and they don't send me property tax bills anymore. They let them know.
And taxation, they admit taxation is a feature of sovereignty. How can a corporation be sovereign when it has no authority to even exist? How can it be sovereign? It's a piece of paper.
Exactly.
So, and they admit that. So,
I mean, I've had corporations. I own a couple of different businesses. I had corporations. I even had an offshore corporation. So I understand how corporate entities work. That's not the way our government is supposed to work.
No, the purpose of it is to make money. That's always the corporate purpose.
That's your sole function. You have fiduciary responsibility, if you're an officer of that business, to make money. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Not the quality you want in government.
Exactly. It shouldn't be a profit-making venture. It should be for the people. If something is needed, then we, the people, should get together and have that conversation and discuss how would we accomplish that task for our community. That's what's supposed to be taking place, not these commissioners and other officials just saying, "Well, this is great for everybody. Let's do it." Who enjoins you in this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I wanted to touch base a little bit with, and I don't know if you've gotten up to speed with the Roger Hillegas matter, and I haven't really mentioned this part of it. He had someone help him, and the case is kind of important because they want to establish not only can we deprive you of your freedom for no reason at all, so we can steal your stuff is the real reason. This is one of those predatory guardianship deals, and so they instead of allowing the family to just honor their own trust document, they used the pretext that the two people in the family were in dispute over what the trust meant or how it was going to be applied. And you take it to a corporate tribunal, and they're going to say, "Well, you two can't agree, so we're going to get one of our buddies who will be neutral to administer this trust." And the first thing they do is they just start selling everything off. But they have to get people out of the property to sell it, and they abduct them and they put them in some kind of a lockup, some kind of a dungeon. And with Roger Hillegas, at first they took his mother, and they put her, in a place, and she did not like it, and her son went in. That's Roger, and he went in with a friend who had been 30 years in law enforcement. Stuart Handy was his friend.
Yeah, he was a
And
sheriff. He was a former sheriff there. Did you want to play that small clip of Stuart that you sent me?
it's not of Stuart. It's in a second. Yeah, I want to get to Roger's current physical condition and how they're gloating about it. And it's right up there on Facebook for all to see, along with murders being committed in the Reno County Jail, and nobody cares, and they're just killing people. So there is apparently, and Glenn, you told me this, there's no even corporate grand jury there, which is historically the investigative body.
Yeah.
So the people have got to step up, unless they just want are you just going to stand by and watch them slaughter your children, and,
and take and drug up your elderly parents and remove them from their homes and sell their property and drain out their bank accounts, because that's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, I have had a chance to review a little bit. I have talked to several members of our team, and we have a member of our team who is going to take this up and do the research involved with this, and because there's a lot, and we just got notified of this last week, so we weren't aware of the situation. So it's going to take us a minute to catch up, and I will forward you his contact information. And he has some experience with very similar situation. Not quite the same, but very similar. I'm actually helping his family on one of those matters. And he would be a good person because he knows because he had to dig himself out of this system that put him in illegally incarcerated, and he didn't have adequate representation. And he himself had to do all the work. He was in Oklahoma to get himself out of that. And it took a long time and a lot of work, but he was able to finally get his freedom, and he got the heck out of that state. And so we think he'd be a good choice, especially because of his personal experience involving that. He knows where to go hunt and do this stuff. So we will be introducing. I will be introducing him to your people. Hopefully, we can get some people in northern Nevada. We got to start doing some rallies, start being out in front of their locations. We need to start hitting them with FOIs nonstop and getting every pick of documentation we can possibly get. And then we talked about paneling our own grand jury and having our court. So we are on board with that, and we're going to have our members start looking into this in a lot more detail. I'm turning it over to him not because I don't feel confident in my own thing. I'm currently in the middle of another project that is getting ready to come to a head here in a minute, involving somebody who was illegally incarcerated, and the state Supreme Court here demanded his release, and the judge literally ignored it for an additional 90 days.
Wow.
An additional 90 days. And now we're finding out that the trumped up charge that they finally got him in was some jury tampering, because the judge literally went in there and tampered with the jury. The judge, it appears, changed the paperwork and charged him with higher crimes, and that's what's on file in the criminal database. And the strict the supposed strong misdemeanor, it now shows up in the system, and he's a felon. And he was never convicted of any felony. So now we have a situation where it looks like all the paperwork was completely doctored up as well.
I've seen
and all he was doing was exposing the corruption. He is associated with a radio station here in town, and he was exposing corruption that was brought to his attention, and they went after him.
Oh yeah, they don't like that.
No, they don't like it at all.
Right. You do that, and all of a sudden, you never in your life like me, never had a criminal record, then all of a sudden out of nowhere, you ask for your records and they send it to you and it says, here's your criminal file. I mean, a criminal file. The funny thing is, it's nowhere else except in one tiny little city where you expose something they were doing in their court and in their system. And now you come to find out this is happening everywhere.
It's happening everywhere. It's
Right.
happening everywhere.
Well, and they think that's going to make us stop. And what it's doing is making us stronger. It's making us stronger because people are really pissed off, and more than before, because now you're attacking innocent people for exposing what you're doing. You know, first it was attacking innocent people for standing up for themselves. You know, and you're going after people because they're standing up for themselves. You know, now people are exposing it through social media and so many other ways, and now they've taken it upon themselves to go after us, go after those exposing and label us criminals and domestic terrorists and all these labels. They'll label you a sovereign citizen, a domestic terrorist. If you're exposed, it's disgusting.
I mean, this is the same thing our forefathers went through. This is why there's the First Amendment. This is why there's the Second Amendment. This is why there's the Third, and on down the line. They used to have to use surnames. They used to have to meet in bars and dark corners and have their conversations because under threat of being incarcerated and arrested and killed and whatever. And they're doing it again today. If you don't think we're in a tyrannical government situation, ladies and gentlemen, there's the proof. History repeats itself.
I don't consider them they're our government at all. I mean, they're just what was our government outsourced this to corporations. So these are just hired hands, really, that we're dealing with.
Criminal enterprise. The whole thing is a criminal enterprise. That's literally what it is. Rob you, and if you don't subjugate to what we tell you to do, we will incarcerate you. The end. That's just criminal enterprise. That's no different than the cartels.
And those who you might complain to or bring your grievances to, those are our buddies. Those are our buddies. So go ahead and complain for years. Go ahead and file what you want, because it's go ahead and appeal it. Those are our buddies up there and the same members of the same bar. So good luck with that. That's pretty much what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. My question, you know, in the earlier days of our existence, when you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or this or that, you practiced under somebody who had already had enough experience, and then they went, such as lawyers, and they went before the court and they said, this person has been working with me. I've been mentoring them for this amount of time. I certify that they're learned enough to practice law, and then the courts would do that. No, the courts then took and subjugated that authority. Most of them started doing it in the 30s. Some of them waited into the 50s, but they subjugated, I think our state was 54, but they gave it to a private entity, corporation, bar association, and there's not supposed to be any requirement to do anything you want to do in this country where you have to be forced to apply and be part of an association and follow the rules. That is if you choose to, but it's not supposed to be mandated or required. And we got away from that. I mean, look at pharmacists couldn't even prescribe medications that doctors had issued prescriptions for because, well, we're not going to do this because of COVID. You know, these associations are illegitimate. And they should, if you want to be part of this association, great. But if you don't, you shouldn't have to.
Well, even they in Goldfarb versus Virginia Bar from years ago, they admit from the 1970s, I think, they admitted that the bar was a monopoly. And that was the lawyer advertising case.
And they did nothing about it because they're all in bed together.
Right. Yeah. Who's going to enforce the Sherman or Clayton antitrust acts? Nobody. It used to be. Department of
What was
Justice.
what was the
Which
last
also-
corporation that was broken up in
Ma Bell.
under Ma Bell? That's right, Ma Bell.
Mhm.
Last one. Nobody's done anything about it since.
And that's just a way of putting lipstick on that pig that the corporate structure is. It's not going to fix it anyway, but it just gets so much worse when it's allowed to monopolize. And that's what the government. Well, we're the government, so we can be a legal monopoly. They say. No, they can't.
No.
Not
We're
lawful.
so far off of our founding documents and what this country was supposed to be. We're so far off of it now. It's going to require everybody to stand up, learn what the past is, learn what your rights are, understand how they all interact with each other, and stand in a place of, no, you have no authority and I refuse to capitulate and you need to leave me alone.
Right,
And become part of these I mean, there is a movement taking place, and one of the things that we're trying to do is get with other common law groups. So there's going to be like one location that people can go to for resources, for international common law courts, for the different organizations. And so when maybe you're in another state, there's probably a group that you haven't heard about for whatever reason, because they suppress us in the search fields, and Google's been caught so many times playing with algorithms. They don't want anybody to know we exist. They don't want anybody to know that we are speaking the truth.
Right. Yeah. It's easier to know a little bit more about what's going on in your own state, but even here, we could be surprised at some point that there's another common law assembly going. I don't think that there is. There's been talk about it, but I don't think they're doing anything. But, we don't have a monopoly on anything. It just happens that right now, as far as I know, we're the only common law court in the Ohio Republic. And it's the site that you're talking about that would be a go-to site for people trying to assemble in any state. It would have would it also be a common law recording site? Because that tends to be, and I wanted to put this out there at some point, and I think I sent you the document, the notice of intent to form a common law assembly in Nevada. And I sent you that, Glenn, and I don't know if you think it's necessary, but it's basically the same document that we posted it online in a common law, on a common law Facebook page, a news page. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So we notified the so-called state Supreme Court Chief Justice and the Attorney General. Nobody had anything to say about it. When we started, well, it's 2021. We posted like 3 times. I don't know why, but that's what we did. And giving everybody a chance to object, and nobody objected. And how could they object? Because we're only exercising power that everybody admits we have to begin with. So that's
exactly. One of the important things that I try to bring up, because there's different organizations here in town. Like there's a group, they're fighting the solar farms that they're trying to build out here that's going to damage our ecosystem and damage turtles and screw up the Joshua trees and a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a group that's working against the collective power company, and I've been reaching out to this group saying, look, maybe what we believe doesn't necessarily resonate with you, but if we all work together, we can actually start to make change. And so one of the reasons why I'm so keen on creating this collaborative website, documentation that different organizations have used, like you said, cases, grand jury thing, all this type of stuff. You kind of create a place where we as a group can collectively go, and I'm all about whatever documentation I have up that I created or someone created or whatever, share and share alike.
Yeah.
The more
Right.
the merrier, because and if we start to, because right now what I see is in my own community, and I'm pretty sure people that are listening can resonate with this within their own community. There's a whole bunch of groups working on different things. Maybe they cross each other in certain areas, but you don't have to necessarily belong to a group to work with the group. Stop with the whole part of the whole, well, I don't want to be with that group because they believe such and such, or they're part of such and such. The thing about it is that's what they teach you to do. When we are all together with the same thing, we want our freedom. We want to have a country that was supposed to be for us, that was promised to us, given to us by God. If we all strive to that common goal, when it comes to the little things that they pump, like right now, they're trying to create a race war against people. You know, they're trying to
big on that for a long time.
Yeah. So they're trying, their behavior separates us. When we come together collectively to say, no, we are the masters, they will then have no more power.
Right, right. Well, there are always going to be people with the slave mentality that are going to want to genuflect in front of them. And there's nothing, more power to them, let them do whatever they're going to do. But that doesn't mean that as long as they don't interfere with my freedom to do what I want to do, then I'm not worried about however they're throwing their lives away. I can't stop. I don't like it that they're doing that, but I think
it's a free will planet.
That's right. And
free will.
we know that we don't get anywhere in their system. Not really, especially if we're talking about the so-called legal system. And I've had successes in that system over the years, but it really changed considerably. I think at least it was little by little by little. They chip away at your rights, and I thought it was real too at the time. And I didn't know they were corporate, and I was in it, and I didn't know that. And I never questioned it.
I didn't. I worked in the system. I was working in the courts. I was going to law school, and I was working as a freelance paralegal for about 7 or 8 different attorneys. And after about 18 months, I was like, oh, what the? And then I started doing some research, and I started looking at what's going on here, because this doesn't make sense. And then I started seeing the whole picture, and I'm like, what do you mean the courts are corporate? That's not so. And then that's when the whole thing just started flowing. Not that we've been asleep to every single thing, and understand that as people wake up, you might have been awake to something before, but you weren't awake to this matter, or you weren't awake to that matter. I will tell you, every day I learn something new that I did not know before. And I make it a point to try to learn something new, because there are people that know a lot more than I do even, and it takes time to remove that cognitive dissonance that they've programmed into our head through the matrix. Getting out of the matrix is very difficult and sometimes painful.
Well, because we've addicted ourselves to the so-called benefits that the corporate system offers us, that really we can find better substitutes from our own industry, from our own work, and our own creativity that has been suppressed for so many centuries.
It's been for that long.
Yeah, right. I think we had, a few good years, maybe from 1776 to 1861, when the Southern Senators walked out, and then they Lincoln established that we're going to cram this government you don't want down your throat. And if you
No
don't
matter
like
what.
it, yeah, you're a criminal, you're a traitor, and we can kill you if we like.
Yep.
And that's what's that established. And so that's been kind of an impediment, let's say, to people being able to be free. But it's just gotten too intolerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a state of despotism. And so we have to stand and say, I'm not, when the Constitution talks about you stand in the place of you have a right and you have a duty. You also have a duty to say no. And that is, non-compliance is the best revolution out there. Non-compliance. We are establishing our own sovereign. We are establishing the government that we should have always had. We are establishing the courts that should have always been in place. And when Abraham, like you said, it goes really back to Abraham Lincoln, and he sold us out to the British Crown and created the foreign enclave, which is DC.
Right. Apparently, even before that, 3 bar members, John Jay, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin, sold us out in the Treaty of Paris. What the colonists won on the battlefield, they gave up to King George. So a lot of people don't know that. It's just word games. It's word games. If what was real was the blood that was shed and the victory that was achieved. And just because, the people got screwed over by bar members doesn't change that. I'm personally not wedded to the idea of a national government at all. I think it's too large and unwieldy. Yeah, the idea of a national defense sounds great, but they started giving themselves rights instead of mere prohibitions in a constitution pretty early on, and that right to regulate interstate commerce has been really, really, really abused to justify almost anything they do, extradition and all kinds of stuff. And that's what happened to Roger when they always took him from another state and then dragged him back. And
you
there
want
was
to show the Facebook?
Yeah. Show Roger's condition and the head Reno kidnapper commenting on it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Let me just pull that up real quick.
This is Judge Barry Breslow, so-called, commenting on Roger Hillegas's physical condition.
Mr. Hillegas is laid in jail. It's not doing him any good. Every time I see him, he looks thinner, not as healthy as the other times I've seen him. Mr. Hillegas is laid in jail. It's not doing him any good. Every time I see him, he looks thinner and not as healthy as the other times I've seen him. Mr. Hillegas is lingering in jail. It's not doing him any good. Every time I see him, he looks thinner and not as healthy as the other times I've seen him.
And he's the one doing it to him.
Yeah.
They really apparently do want to release him, but they want to release him on their terms. They want to release him with an ankle monitor, being under house arrest. And bless his heart, Roger's like, I'm not doing it. They'll release me or they won't. And when Roger went in, he wasn't in a wheelchair, but I understand he is now. I don't know how much longer Roger has, and he doesn't know how much longer he has. They're killing him. Every now and then they just take him out of his wheelchair and they just beat him too, when they're not depriving of his prescribed medication and all the stuff that they're doing.
Should I go ahead and play where they order him to wear an ankle monitor ahead of trial?
Sure. Do you have that handy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is as to Stewart.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Out of the nursing home. Now, for an update, just we brought you yesterday, a former lawman will have to wear an ankle monitor while waiting for his trial. Stuart Hanty is accused of helping another man take his mother out of a nursing home. They say he didn't have custody of her and wasn't allowed to do that. The DA argues Hanty intimidated people involved in the case. Today, district court judge ruling that he stay away from prosecutors and peace officers involved with the case. He also has to wear an ankle monitor and pay for it himself.
Yeah, this man was Stuart Handy. He was sheriff, I think, of Mineral County, Nevada, and he was basically just there as a witness that when Roger went to the nursing home to get his mother, she wanted to leave. The nursing home was well aware of what he was doing. They had no problem with it. But Reno had a problem with it. So they did what they did. And even when, and I don't remember if it was when they abducted him that time or another time, one of the foreign judges, he was abducted in California. He was abducted again in Missouri. And they even admitted, we're operating under no jurisdiction. Even though they had no jurisdiction to hold him, they admitted they kept him for another 4 days while they waited for the private transport company that is notorious for killing people on the road to get him and to take him back to the killing fields of Nevada. So, yeah.
How many years have they had him now?
Well, Roger has the matter's been going on since like 2015, 2014, somewhere in there. And then they didn't start locking him up until I think the Guardian jumped into it in like 2015, started selling everything. And Roger at that time believed in the system. He kept filing, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And he just would file more. And anyway, so they managed to kill his mother in 2016 in a nursing home. And anyway, so Stewart, the sheriff, was held for about 92, he told me 92 days. And before he finally agreed under duress, to take the damn ankle monitor. Roger won't do it. So, and
I for what I've seen already, what you guys have shared with me, I don't even have words for it right now. I like you said, he believed in the system. That sheriff believed in the system. Being that he was working as a sheriff at one point, I believed in the system and learned very quickly. Not very quickly, but I learned that even if you're part of the system, they'll eat you if you don't do what they want you to do. And when you realize that they don't have really any authority, they say they have authority. Understand that they only have authority for giving it to them. They say they have the authority, but it's just because they have established themselves with the resources to impose their will. That's literally where we're at. That's what I see.
Right. And they have, they have people, propagandists who argue for them. I've seen law review articles about justifying a de facto system. They know they're de facto. They know they're not de jure. And they justify it with such concepts that they made up themselves, the concepts of necessity, which they use for themselves. However, if people try and use the concept of necessity, it doesn't apply to them. It only applies when the the parasites want to use it. And then there's another one, parents pay patriae, where your daddy, and you agreed to it when your parents signed the birth documents, or when you signed this, or when you signed that. So, and nobody knows enough to dispute that, but we do. And we have rebutted it, and you can see it on our website, where we've got 10 people now who rebutted it. And they, just because they say so doesn't make it true. I wanted to share, one of the part of the ugly of, having a common law court, and they'll go into a hissy fit again, probably, when we get enough people to form a common law grand jury. But we just this evening, apparently, I learned that we received, I'm probably repeating myself, a complaint from the Office of Disciplinary Counsel. So they're, for some reason, they're not only not happy, but they're acknowledging that somebody's acknowledging that we pose a threat to their system.
They wouldn't come after you unless you're posing a threat. Right.
If what we thought and what we did didn't matter, why would they go to all these extremes to censor us, to punish us for expressing ourselves?
I was kicked off of Facebook, Twitter, and pretty much everything except for the ones that don't adhere to that rule back in 2020. Well, you wouldn't have banned me if what I was saying wasn't true. If it wasn't true, you'd just say, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist, which they like to throw out and use against everybody. Well, guess what? All that we've been saying is coming true. So they only come after you and attack you when you are right over the target.
Right.
So, and if the media tells you something, it's a lie. I mean, if you have, it's interesting watching how many people watch, looking at the numbers of how many people watch the mainstream media today versus 5 years ago, night and day.
Yeah.
And it's
They're
very
not mainstream anymore.
Yeah, they're not mainstream anymore. That actually the internet, and there's some big names out there in the internet. I mean, why do you think they went after Alex Jones? They we're gonna find you $900-something million for speaking your mind. I've never heard of CNN getting fined $900 million for speaking their trash.
Yeah. But then if they can't get you that way directly by banning you, then they will infiltrate you. They will co-opt you in some way. That's the concern. And that's why people are rightfully suspicious of, or not suspicious, but careful, maybe unduly careful about who they ally themselves with, because I think we all know that the current system is going to go down. I think it's kind of a spiritual truth that governments can't be maintained when everybody hates them. But the question is, we don't want something worse. We don't want to replace it.
Exactly. We don't want to see it's become like, Mussolini's Italy or something like that, or Spain with Marco and what the Khmer Rouge did in Cambodia, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. So we don't want that. We want to get back to our founding documents, get back to the common law, which is common sense, and get back to those things. And so yes, we know the current system, it cannot maintain itself. And so it's going to basically, it's imploding. But what we bring out, what we create as a country, as a people, and maybe we won't be one country. It's happened in our lifetime. The Soviet Union was one country, and now it's not one country anymore. So, and during, the Abraham Lincoln, they wanted to secede. They actually had a right to leave.
Of course.
You know, you choose to stay or not stay. And so could we have a couple different countries here in what we think of we currently have? Yes, possible. I would hope that
Each state has always been considered its own sovereign nation, republic.
yeah. So honestly, like you said, the federal government is supposed to be tiny. It's supposed to basically be the secretary of what we the people want. That's it. And you know, like you had mentioned before, that you know they make these laws and they give themselves these benefits and they do all that. And ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution says very clearly they're not allowed to make a law that doesn't apply to us as well.
They don't have any authority to make law. That's for the
Exactly.
people.
So
And
they
they're
just
not representatives of us,
they just
so.
line their pockets and tell us all to pay for it. And if you don't be a good slave to the system, then you know.
They only have authority to enact corporate policy. And if you're not in their corporation, their corporate policies don't apply to you. I mean, if Walmart has a policy that you can't walk in to their store wearing sandals, and you walk in there wearing sandals, yeah, they can kick you out. They can do bad things to you, I suppose. But once they start, if they start trespassing on your, you know, your God-given rights, that's a different matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
they can't help but trespass onto our turf. They're always on our turf. In their fake system, on their fake turf, they're still using our people.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's doomed. You know, the system is doomed. We just have to understand our own power.
Exactly. We the people, there's a reason why it says we the people. We are the power. We grant it or take it away. And I have rescinded that. I no longer, you don't have that authority. So we as a people have to stand up and say, you just don't have that authority. You know?
Now, there are some contracts that we're still involved in because we are not strong enough yet to disengage.
Yeah.
And one day we will be. One day we will take back our public courthouses if we want to, and or we might just let them do whatever they're going to do. I mean, if you want, let's say you want to get a divorce, and you want to go into their courthouse and do it their way and pay attorneys and have it drag on for 10 years. And I've seen that happen even in divorce without children.
While they drain your bank account doing it.
Or you want to get it over with in about 2 months in a common law court.
Yeah. We need to establish parallel systems. We have a right to do so. I choose that these will be my representatives and my government entity for my future generations and my future as who I am. That actually tells me I have the right to do that. So we need to create those parallel systems. Choose which one you want to participate in. Just like right now, you can do everything with the Federal Reserve. No, but you know what? There's Bitcoin. There's alternatives. There's gold and silver. You now have the BRICS nations coming online with gold-backed currency. There is options now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people should be looking at the parallel system versus what they've been doing for all this time.
Yeah, we're supposed to be about choice, you know, and pure barter, you know, in many ways. The thing that concerns me most is replacing the electric system with something more sustainable. And you mentioned about cooperative electrical companies that I guess they're probably still corporates, which means eventually that's going to screw the people over.
Yeah, they're a 501c12. And so they're in that whole system. Yeah, they're in that whole system.
Yeah.
They're in that whole system. And yes, they're supposed to follow rules and regulations and all that kind of stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, surprise, they don't do that.
Well, because they cross somebody's palms with silver, like they always do. Now, if they were operating a clean operation, they wouldn't have to be under, they would only be under the rules that the people that they serve wanted them to be under. And,
I mean, they're finally starting to admit there was a scientific group, I think they were in Africa, I'm not sure, where they done a study. Guess what? They were pulling electricity right out of the air.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they've hidden these technologies from us. Now they're admitting, oh, we've been seeing UFOs forever. Yeah. And so there are people that right now are going, what do you mean you've been seeing aliens forever? I thought there were no aliens. So we all know that if we're the only species in this whole whatever, I doubt that. I think God's a lot more intelligent than that.
Right. Go ahead.
I think there's someone in the private chat that wants to ask a question, but I think she's trying to call you. I think that's what I'm gathering from it. But
yeah, my phone's on. You can do that.
Okay, but she has her mic muted. Darlene,
yeah, Darlene, you want to add something? Unmute your mic, and you'll be able to.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's even still on.
Oh, it shows that she is, but her mic, she has her own mic muted. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Darlene, if you wanted to, you could just unmute your mic and ask Catherine whatever you wanted, or Glenn.
I'll see if anybody's sending me an email. No.
If for some reason we can't get her question in today, we will answer your question in the future if you send us an email or whatever. So we'll make sure we get the question answered and share it with others, because I guarantee you someone else will have the same question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know Darlene's from Ohio, so she might not have questions about Nevada, but something about common law. I don't know. Okay, so how do we want to leave this? We've been on over an hour close to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll definitely need to do follow up. I'm hoping that there are people in the Reno area that are actively involved in that we can get connected up with, and we can start working on getting this information out and getting the voice heard and getting people supporting it and getting on board and starting the campaign to really put this out there and just make sure people understand what's going on, is that they're just killing people. I mean, when I saw the statistics on a 600% increase in mortality, that should never be accepted in any way, shape, or form. I mean, if that's the way it's going to be, then there's no different than digging a ditch and shooting people into the trench. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that part, and I will be introducing you to the investigator that's going to be working on this case. I would like to invite people to come to our website, called Your Website. Go look within your state. If you don't know of a place within your state, contact one of us. You know what? My other member of our group, he's actually on a call with several other common law organizations out in Oklahoma and Tennessee with the wave that's taking place over there. They're actually getting control of their communities through the election process, and then creating appropriate government entity structure and dissolving the corporations. So
they're dissolving corporations. Oh, okay.
They're dissolving the corporations. So they're establishing the correct government entity for their future generations, and they're getting rid of the garbage that's been around. So it's happening. People are seeing it, and get involved. Get involved. Even if you're just involved in name, or help do a little research, or, like our group. I mean, we probably have 7 or 8 things going on right now, and we're about to take on the 8th one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you guys are just as busy, because people are looking for what's right. They're looking for justice. They're looking for freedom. They're actually saying, they're starting to question now the system. They're not just accepting it anymore.
Yeah, we're finding too that, once people understand the 3 notice process, which we've broadcast about before, there's a lot they can take care of by themselves. Once they know, knowledge is a very powerful thing. And when you have a little bit of it, enough to know how to drag them out of their comfort zone and into the common law world, that God created, then you can get them to recognize what the facts are. You can establish those, and those facts are established then for all time.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be used by a common law grand jury to do with as they wish. And don't forget, common law grand juries are excellent vehicles for making those who previously been unaccountable accountable, and to free people who've been oppressed with nonsense charges.
Exactly. So we will be working collaboratively on this situation, and hopefully, not hopefully, we will get the appropriate justice that is due these people for all the malfeasance and what has been done to them. We're going to do this. This is going to happen.
Okay. Well, that would be great, and I would like to see. You hear every now and then about so-called constitutional sheriffs still taking a corporate paycheck. Never know how, to what degree can we trust these people. But there's a few here and there that say they are, and we'll see. We'll see.
Well, ours says they are. We're going to see if he's going to actually hold to that. There's a bunch of stuff happening where he's going to get a heads up, and are you going to go do your job? We'll see.
Yeah, we need to also, we'll do it on our next show, post up, what's the penalty for violating their oath of office? What's a penalty for them committing misprision of felony, where when they're notified of a felonious crime and they sit back and do nothing?
Yeah.
When they've taken a job and took an oath saying, I'm taking this job and I'm taking this oath that I will do my job. And you notify them of felonious crimes going on within their own system, and they just sit back, do absolutely zero. And there are penalties, including fines and jail time for misprision of felony, for ignoring crimes reported to someone mandated to do something about it. So we need to put some of those up on our next show, because
I agree.
I think people don't realize these public servants, when they ignore crimes just because it's their people committing the crime, so they're looking the other way. Nope, there's a penalty to pay for that, and we're going to see what we could do, because this has just gone on too long. It's out of control. People are dying.
Okay, I want to put my email address out there. I think I'm the contact person at the moment. I shouldn't be, but I am, for the Nevada Assembly formation notice, and it's WLJA radio@AOL.com. That's WLJA radio@AOL.com, and I'll certainly pass along any information I get, to you, Glenn, and I know one of your other people, I spoke to him briefly.
Gary, he's our founder and divine teacher. So,
Okay.
yeah. So
All
he has more information and can give you more history and knowledge than I have ever met anybody in my life. He just knows so much. And that's why we're trying to now take this information, this wealth of knowledge, and get it into a format to then show it to people and explain it to them and educate them on what's going on. But yeah, I think we'll be linking our sites together through this project. So I talked about creating another page within there. So we're going to be able to collaborate. People, when they reach out, they'll be able to reach out to both of us just with a click of a mouse. So
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for being on, and
Definitely. It was a pleasure, Glenn. We
it is
look
a
forward
pleasure to have met you all. It is a pleasure to have been here. It is a pleasure to educate and teach people as much as we possibly can. And, you know, we're going to bring back the glory of what we were always supposed to be.
amen.
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 All right. Till next time, next Thursday at 9.
Sounds good.
Well,
Next Thursday at 9.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great evening.
You too as well.
Thank you.